human curiosity, it's the story, the mystery. There is an element of mystery in a lot of programs, I think is very strong. I want you to listen to this. I want you to listen to this because it's interesting and because I think you will be absolutely fascinated by this. Radio, which has no pictures, has the most powerful pictures because they are the pictures that we have inside our heart, inside our head. They are the pictures of feelings.
If you don't have the pictures, use your mind. What can you do with the sound? And the sound becomes stronger without the pictures.
If you have scenes, your documentary becomes a little bit like a movie.
I gave you the definition of feature I love most. Of course, it's mine. I have forgotten it. What was it?
For me, a good feature is not only made by the heart and by the belly, but also by the head.
Radio feature is like an ocean.
A good feature, it's like a song.
The great feature can be like great restaurant.
It has its own personal melody.
It's a means of transport for information.
It's the world I live in. I love it.
That means of transport can be a lorry or a rocket to the moon.
The feature puts the question, how has it happened? Or why? One of the most interesting questions in life is, how could it come so far?
You can do a feature about anything. Anything. There's nothing that you can't do a feature about. And the key is a good story.
The rule for feature makers is that there are no rules.
Once I called a feature the prostitute of radio. Church radio makes feature. Women radio makes feature, but always using it for their own purposes. So there is no international understanding how a feature should be. There is an international understanding how features might be.
Please come in, everybody. We're starting the afternoon session.
The IFC is a kind of conference of shoemakers. You have talks about material, tools, how to sell, all aspects of shoes. And that kind of stuff you can translate to documentary.
I think if somebody who is not part of our conference, if he enters the hall where we sit, he really thinks it's a bunch of total crazy people who just sit, listen, for example, to even Chinese, we have that as well, and read the English translation. For an outsider, it looks really strange. For us, it's part of our reality and the link between us that we are all a little bit crazy here and we are all freaks and we all love radio. And it might look for an outsider as if we are all quite crazy, but I think we all like to be crazy.
I'm not someone who is going into the streets behind the flag. Hey, vive a radio documentary. No, it's stupid. It comes like it goes. But still, it's there. And I always say radio is the only medium that can make us blush in the dark. I don't know what I mean by that, but it sounds well.
Radio is the most sensual and sexy media because of this breath and the voice and the closeness. Now you and I, we sit so close to each other. I cannot lie to you now because you look into my eyes, you know. The distance you have chosen with this mic is, you never talk to another person in that distance unless you're having sex or are lying in the bed close to each other or I'm whispering something into your ears. So that's very special. And it gives a special communication, I think.
And here are the big lines.
Everything has been said, but not by me.
"50 years of IFC. Welkom, Berit Hedemann, Lorelei Harris, and Tereza Reková. My name is Willem and I'm from the Netherlands. And on stage, an amount of experience of radio making and 50 years of IFC. And I like to introduce our guests one by one. By the way, I have a small announcement. In your program is also the name of Edwin Bries from Belgium. But Edwin had a double appointment this week. He need to be in the hospital, or he was here. And it goes very well with Edwin, but he chose for the hospital. So we do it without Edwin. This is a stream, and I know Edwin is watching this. Hello, Edwin.
Hello, Edwin.
Hello, Edwin.
Hello.
Hi, Edwin.
Hey, Edwin. My idea is this jubilee to talk about what we have learned of 50 years of IFC as maker, and also what was the benefit for the listener on the end. And now we are starting a new 50 years, so the audience is responsible for the next 50 years. So what can we give to carry on the quality and the benefit of the IFC? So, Berit Hedemann from Norway. You are for many years in the documentary world. You live in Oslo. You work by the NRK, that is the public broadcaster of Norwegian. You have a regular visit to the IFC. You have done a lot of things. You have grow up the standards. But when I ask you, can you give us a summary, your summary of an IFC? What is an IFC in your opinion?
Oh, to me, I'm sorry for my voice. I got a flu. But to me, IFC have been the possibility to meet people like you, of the same kind, people who like to do many, many recordings for many, many hours and then use too much time to cut it down to a documentary. I hadn't met that sort of people before, and it's a nice way of meeting people because I think that's, you get intimate with people without knowing them when you hear their programs. So I know the soul of the program makers more than I know the program makers themselves. And I've been loving that, and I've been loving the discussions going in deep in details of what is functioning in radio documentary, because when we go really in details in that, then we can make our own programs better.
The discussion about the programs.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe we talk later about the quality and the benefit of that kind of discussions. Next to you is Lorelei Harris from Ireland. She is editor of arts, feature and drama for RTE Radio in Dublin. For many years also the member of the EBU feature group, and also for now I think 11 years the chair of that EBU feature group. So also I think a lot of experience with IFCs and how to organize it in that way that we can do something with it. If I ask you the same question, Lorelei, give a summary of IFC.
Well, I think at one level, the IFC is what my very beloved friend Leo Brown calls a shoemaker's conference. It is a place where we take apart the nuts and bolts of things and then try and put it together again in a way that possibly makes more sense or gives us a better shoe. At a personal level, and I can only talk about what the IFC is for me personally, It was an oasis. It was, and I think this is the same for many broadcasters and for many journalists coming here. But for me, coming from a peripheral Western European country where public service broadcasting is often a contested terrain, it was an oasis. It was a place where I felt I could go to draw energy, to continue with the work. That was so important. I'm sorry, I feel very emotional about all of this. And I think in summary, I would say it was the place in the world where professionally I found my tribe.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then our special guest, Tereza Reková from Czech Republic.
Please don't say special. It sounds
Okay.
like...
Our next guest is also with a lot of experience of IFC, not only because visiting a lot, but also Reková write a book about the benefit of festivals, for instance, the IFC, how it works and what can be. Anyway, she write a book about it, and in this session, at the end of this session, we have a special moment about that book. So, now, Reková, I ask you the same question as I ask Berit and Lorelei. You have spoken with a lot of people for your book. We're talking later more about your book, so don't give anything. But what is your summary?
When we spoke about this session before, in advance, you said that we should say what IFC means to us in 30 seconds. I can say it in 1 second. Mm-hmm. IFC means love for me. So it has been like 10 years for me with the IFC. It changed my life completely. And I think that for many of us, and I think I'm like lots of people feel the same way, the documentary making is very often, we documentary makers are very often like lonely beasts. It's 3 a.m., we are sitting on the computer, we are editing something, and we are feeling like, oh my God, yeah, we should go to the bed. But we need to, this sentence, it just doesn't sound right. We need to edit it like a bit differently, and there's this we need to cut it out, or we need to, I don't know, put their nice breath somehow, cut it differently, and we are doing it like lonely, and we spend like so many hours lonely editing and thinking about things. But these meetings here, this conference every year, these regular meetings, means for me that we can get together, we can ensure that we are not weird, we are not like crazy people. Well, like we are crazy people, but we are crazy about what we do. And that's very important for me, to make sure that I am not alone. And I think for many of us that we are not alone, that we are here all together, maybe hundreds of kilometers, far from each other, but we are still on the same ship, and we are doing what we love together. So that's what IFC means for me.
1 second, okay. For many years we are here together, not here together, but we are come together. But what can we do with it, with makers? What is the reason that it works, Berit?
Yeah, for me it's listening to the details in the program, because I can learn so much from the details in the program, how they make it, where I think they did it wrong, where I think they did it right. It was because it was a pause before that. That was the thing, or something like that.
That is one, but it starts in 1974, and on screen now you see the first 3 members of the beta version of the IFC, Leo Brown, and in top is Ake Blumström, and right below is Andries Poppe. It starts in 1974. One of the reasons that it starts was the invention of the portable tape recorder.
Yeah, sure.
Sure, that was a very important invention, but you can do more with a portable tape recorder than the studio.
Of course, and the natural voice of the interviewees, because before that, people speaking in radio were really very formal. But with the portable recorder, then you could go to a peasant and ask him, and he would speak in a normal way. So that was really the difference. But I just want to say, because it's interesting when I see these guys who made this possible, I must say that. But when I came into business in 1989, I think I was one of 4 women. And when I see you now, it's really different. And I was a young woman, and the men, they were middle-aged, and they were very critical. I must say, very critical. So, so they had the profession of being critical in an extremely elegant and crushing way.
Well, is it useful for makers or for listeners at the end? Zo'n IFC, the last 50 years.
Sorry, could you repeat that question?
Of course. The IFC, zo'n conference, is that useful only for makers or in the end also for listeners?
I think that the benefit of the IFC in the first instance is for the program makers. And if program makers benefit from it, and I have seen successive generations of young program makers come to the IFC, be inspired by it, and take learning home from it, that will permeate their work, that they will take it home to their colleagues, and that the kind of standard of excellence of work which we by and large see at this conference becomes taken in translation back to where we are from. And in that sense, there has to be a benefit for listeners, because I think in many stations around Europe, documentary making is probably the standard, bears with it, the standard of excellence of everything else within the station's output. And it does that because of the critical interrogation of the work, because we are working by and large with a standard of excellence at a technical level, and because we are essentially through the IFC and how we inculcate that in our practice, working at a standard of excellence within ourselves. We are challenging ourselves all the time. So I think all of that has to go into the work and has to draw listeners to it in a different way. So I think there's an indirect benefit for listeners, but I think the main benefit is for program makers themselves.
Okay. You want to say something?
I do agree, but I would add something because I think very often on IFC, it's the first time you really put your documentary out to some sort of public. And then you get reactions. And then you really can get, okay, I thought this would be wonderful, but they don't like it. Why? and that is really important for the listener, for you and for yourself to get this first reaction to your program from different cultures, from different countries, which where they think otherwise than I do.
Tereza, you are in a way the next generation. Is it still working? The inspiring of IFC, of jamming together?
I think that maybe someone would say that today everything is online. We can meet anyone like online. Everyone is producing like thousands of new podcasts every day, and anyone can do a podcast on their mobile phone, and it's very easy to actually produce. But these things are not always, but very often made just for the content and not for experimenting with the sound and finding crossing borders of working with sound. And So that's a bit dangerous, I would say. Oh, well, dangerous. It's okay. It's absolutely okay. But for our craft, the IFC was based on something else than working on things for the content. We were experimenting with the sound. The things listeners to here were not always the best ones, but always inspiring ones. And I think at the beginning, the meeting was important because people got together and listened to things and got to know how Europe talks about things and how other nations work with sound. And it was new for, 50 years ago, it was very new, and they had no way how to discover how they, do things in Latvia or whatever. When we were, from Czech Republic, I couldn't listen to these things. Now I can listen to it because there is, for example, Radio Atlas, which if you don't know it, it's great platform where you can listen to things with English subtitles. But still, like back then, it was getting together for the inspiration, and I think now, after 50 years, it's again getting together for the inspiration, because we are not discovering things we don't know. We know all these things, but we tend to forget it, I guess. So for me, that's the thing why it's important to get together and share the work and discuss about it.
Coming back by Berit, you mentioned the discussions about programs. They are an important part of the IFC. Can you, in a few lines, how that works on discussion, and how can you pick up your elements, how that discussions?
As I said in the beginning, the discussion was in a plenary session. Yeah. You listen to half a program.
Yes, then everybody has something to say, and then you are set.
Yeah, and it was some sort of competition of being ugly in the smartest and most beautiful way.
Yeah. And you was the ugly, or you was the smart?
I was silent for some years.
Okay.
Because I thought it was quite frightening, the whole atmosphere. But then it was divided into groups, discussions, and that was much easier. And then we started focusing on what is functioning well in these programs. Also critics, but what is functioning well, because that was the thing that we should learn and take home to our departments. And then I think the whole atmosphere changed, and many new women came into the business.
Yeah.
And that changed something too, I'm sorry to say so.
In what way? In what way?
Because there was other topics.
Yeah.
In the beginning, I felt like it was absolutely forbidden to be too intimate in the programs.
Yeah.
But now perhaps it's the other way around, I don't know.
Yeah. But it was useful at the end, the discussion?
Sure, the discussions were extremely useful because they were sharply analytic.
Yeah.
And that's what I've been admiring most and liking the most with IFC.
Yeah.
They were sharply analytic, and I had never heard that sort of analysis before.
Yeah.
And that really changed my professional life.
Yeah.
As you say, that changed my professional life.
And on the same moment, it was everybody speaks without the narrative. Everybody speaks humpy-dumpy English. Everybody in the discussion speaks humpy-dumpy English. Not everybody. You're from Ireland, but it was also not easy to say something in another language or when you don't speak English.
No, I often was saying, I don't like this, and that was not what I liked to say.
Yeah.
I would.
Lorelei, for many years there was a kind of not kind, but they call it the IFC family.
Yeah, and I have to say, if I'm absolutely honest, I find the idea of family slightly vomitous. I think it's a romanticization, really, of what the conference is about. It's about professional connections. And in some instances, these professional connections have spilled outwards and developed into very intense and personal friendships. And if one has been lucky enough to build a network of people that has crossed borders, one should consider oneself very, very fortunate. So I think the thing of family is a bit spurious, but I think the idea of a coming together, I guess I don't want to sound negative about it either. I think if it works for you, that's fabulous. It doesn't work for me, but I'm not that kind of cozy person. So what works for me is the idea of a coming together of a grouping of people who have an immense amount of goodwill and a common purpose. And that's what works for me. And if we work with that as a baseline, whatever you decide to do with this going forward, if you work with that as a baseline, it will continue to have value for you. That there is a common purpose, that there is goodwill, that the criticisms that are made, because I think Berit is talking about something that's very important, and that took me personally many years to learn, was how to be critical in a way that was positive rather than how to be critical in a way that just took someone off at the kneecaps so that they couldn't move for 5 days or even longer. I've seen
crying on the hotel room.
Oh, crying everywhere. It was de rigueur that at least 3 or 4 people would end up in floods of tears at the IFC every year. And it was difficult to watch, and there was no learning to be had out of it. So I think, yes, the thing of family, maybe a dysfunctional family. Yeah, but I think there are better ways of looking at this than family, quite frankly.
So your book, Tereza, we're talking about in a few minutes, is a kind of family story.
Dysfunctional family story, yeah.
Okay. I asked in a mail before this plenary, or any questions are for us. For instance, an incoming question comes from Liam. What is the biggest fear, our biggest danger in terms of the future in audio storytelling now?
I would just say that money is the biggest fear. But except for that, there is no fear, because storytelling is never unpopular. Storytelling will never be old-fashioned. Storytelling is following the humanity. So if you go in deep into storytelling, there is no fear for the future. And just one thing, we have to be as good storytellers as they are in Hollywood with documentary stuff. And that is our ambition, to be better than Hollywood in storytelling. Please do that.
Yeah. And with your Lorelei, with your experience, what is for you?
The biggest threat.
Your biggest fear of danger for the future? I
think rigidity.
Pardon?
Rigidity, where we try. I think, leave aside the resourcing question. Resources are always the biggest threat to everything, and it's not to dismiss it. I think that is the baseline threat to everything we've ever done. But I think if we start to try to shoehorn audio documentary making into a single model called storytelling, and we assume that that storytelling is about a linear narrative form, you're on a hiding to nothing. The thing I think that in changing the name of this conference, in changing the main thrust of this conference towards storytelling, that you have to safeguard, is the idea that stories in all cultures, for all times, since pre-literate, pre-audio time, has been about reflecting society back to itself. And there are many ways to make that happen. And we have to keep the canvas as broad as possible to allow for as many different forms of this as possible. It doesn't have to be word-driven. It can be sound-driven. It can be a combination of both. It might be music-driven. There are many ways of skinning this cat, and we need to keep them all on the canvas in front of us all the time, because if we don't, you will find you're making the same program over and over and over again. It's like English. I mean, English is a lingua franca, and it has destroyed both itself and its own variations, and it has imposed terrible things on all other language groups around the world, because we're trying to shoehorn ourselves into a single model and all the philosophical and philological weight that it brings with it. And I think we have the same problem when we look at feature making. We have to keep a broad canvas to survive.
Yeah. I do agree so very much, and I think we have to know that we are to invent the storytelling each and every time we make a new documentary. We have to invent a new way of doing it, a new narration, new narrator, new way of putting things together, new way of making sounds function. Every time we have to invent the world again and again.
Mm-hmm. And that's really the biggest challenge, because that is the impossible task that faces us all, I think. You have to learn to make a decent documentary. You have to learn to write in sound. And as soon as you find your handwriting, it's a self-limiting task, because you do make the same program over and over. We all do it in one form or another. And that is the challenge, I think, that faces us, is to change.
Okay. Another incoming question from Sylvia is for Tereza. You write a book. Do you have any conclusions in your book?
Oh, any conclusions about the change of feature making worldwide? Well, I guess that one of the things why IFC is also, or now EBU storytelling, audio storytelling festival, why it's important is that we, like, when we get together, we can learn from each other, and we can like the development of the artistic radio documentary is still like going on, and we can inspire by the creation from other countries, and we can learn how they do it, I don't know, in Scandinavia, and then we can use the same tools or similar tools. So I guess that these 50 years were important, because we learned how to make features in different ways. We learned from each other, we learned from different countries, and even though maybe each country could have some kind of handwriting, and also each author can have some kind of handwriting, we can, of course, we can keep it, but we can enrich it with some details from other handwritings. We can, combine it. Oh, am I too long?
No. Go on.
Okay. Yeah, I'm a bit nervous now. Yeah, and I also think that it was important because other conferences similar to IFC were created. For example, in Czech Republic, it was Report Conference. Third Coast Festival in Chicago was inspired by IFC. And yeah, the change in storytelling, I guess it's still evolving, and it would be like, I think, yeah, the inspiration from different countries was the main thing. And of course, like 50 years ago, the audio recorder, the microphone was like, I don't know, 10 kilos, you know, it was a big machine. You needed to have a guy holding the machine for you. Now you can record things on your mobile phone. So development is big and fast.
We count down to a special moment, Tereza. That is a countdown to a special moment. You have read the book. How many pages is the book?
300 something.
300 something. Wow. And you write how many years about it?
Something like 5-6 years.
Okay, 5-6 years. In the meantime, there is a book, there is a web page, there is a podcast, there is everything about the radio documentary and how it works. And the book presentation is starting in 20 seconds.
Oh my!
After the 20 seconds, you can more. Don't we have some time, the last 5 minutes for your book? But let's watch first in 1 minute your work in last 6 years, something like that.
Okay, let's do it. This was much better than Hollywood, I guess. Yeah.
Tereza, about your book.
Why you should read the book? Of course, read the book. It's a great book. Yeah. It's about the IFC, but also there was this. Scan this QR code. It will bring you to IFC webpage, like former IFC webpage, because now EBU Storytelling Festival has another webpage, but this will bring you to the old IFC webpage created by this great guy here, Willem, who was the webmaster and is still the webmaster of the IFC webpage, did a great work there. It's archive of everything, all the photos of these 50 years, information about each year and stuff. And also, together with Willem, we created a Spotify channel where you can, during the writing of my book, I did enormous number of interviews with, maybe also with some of you. Hello, thank you for the interview. And so you can find some of these interviews in full length on the Spotify channel. The link you will find on the IFC webpage. And also interviews in full length, but also some short quotes, because when you don't have 2 hours of your time to listen to Leo Brown speaking about feature, I understand, but in the same way, listen to it, it's very interesting and very good. But if you have only 2 minutes, there are some short quotes edited, and you can listen to just some short quotes. And all of these things you will find on the IFC webpage when you scan now this QR code.
And 20% if you order this month.
Yes, actually, so the book
special.
Yes. At first, I was hoping to show you the book here. It was also the deal with the publisher, but life is full of surprises, so I don't have the book now here. But it's already published online, and the paper book will be published soon, hopefully. But when you order it now, there is you can find it on the webpage. There is this coupon, some.
I have
some
a preview
codes.
of the book. It is fabulous. It is absolutely fabulous. It is hardcore. It is full color. It is echt absolutely fabulous. So
I would be just. It's a book. Okay? That's it. I wouldn't say it's just a book, and there is some information about the history of the conference. So, yeah, and also, but it's not only about IFC, because I couldn't write about the IFC without comparing it to other conferences. Because how we can say that the IFC or EBU Storytelling Festival now, how we can say that it's the best festival if we don't compare it to other festivals, right? Yeah. So, well, it's not the best, but it's one of the. It's best. But I also write about Third Coast Festival, Chicago American Festival, Hearsay Audio Arts Festival from Ireland, Pre-Europe and Pre-Italia, and I compare these festivals to each other. So, you can find also the history about these festivals in the book and the IFC. Okay. Yeah.
Thank you, Tereza. Thank you, Lorelei, and thank you, Berit. 50 years.
Thank you, Willem.
Thank you. 50 years of IFC. In 45 minutes, we have doing something to hand over the next 50 years. So I say good luck with it. Thank you.
And never take no for a no.
So far, IFC Jubilee.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Willem. Thank you, Lorelei. Thank you, Berit, and thank you, Tereza. Let's take another small family picture. And then, okay, another round of applause. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts.